this podcast for me is probably going to be a vulnerable one. And I'm not going to open up fully because there's just things that I don't feel like I need to put out there. But I'm hoping that my vulnerability will help others. My intention for my vulnerability is not to expose, to talk bad about, or for any self-pity. I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position and just kind of talking about some things that probably I don't talk about. But this is one of those ones that I had intended, not the topic, but this heavy kind of subject is at the heart of my podcast. And so I hope that is relayed through my words and through the spirit of this podcast. Hi, I'm Christine Siddons. Welcome to the One Tough Mama podcast, where we talk about all things motherhood, the hard, the easy. As you can see from the title, that it's a heavy topic, and it seems like it's one that keeps happening all around me, and people who are very close to me, people who I know maybe online, know in air quotes, and one that touches very close to home in my heart. And the topic is divorce. It has been friends, people that I know that are very close, that have separated or are going through the divorce processes, all various stages of the whole divorce situation. And all of these people have kids. And so this is where I think I need to talk about it. My parents got divorced when I was 6. And I don't remember any fighting. I don't remember any discord or whatever. My memories are happy of my childhood, and the memories that I have of my mom and my dad together are happy ones. And so again, I could have blocked that out. That very well could have been the situation in our house, or they just kept it very quiet and had their disagreements behind closed doors and didn't do that in front of us kids. But I do know, and I don't even remember them telling us. You know how you'll see in TV shows or movies, where the parents sit the children down and have that discussion that, your mom and dad and I were going to get separated or whatever. I don't remember any of those discussions. I honestly don't remember even leaving the house that we were all together in. My memory goes from the house that we lived in as a family to my dad not being around as much, and then him not there. And so I don't even remember. Like I said, I'm going to say that a lot. I don't even remember. Again, because that is just a way that I dealt with the situation. And so at one point, I'm sure once the divorce was finalized, and again, I haven't double checked a lot of the facts with my mom and my dad, but we moved in with my grandparents, my mom's parents, and at the time there was 2 aunts. So it was my mom, and her 3 kids, my grandma, grandpa, and 2 of my aunts. And so I remember at the time, we all stayed. So my mom and us 3 kids, we were all in one bedroom, and it was my mom on the bed. And then around the floor was me, my brother, my sister, and we just slept in sleeping bags or blankets or something. And we didn't think anything, I don't remember thinking, oh my gosh, we don't have a bed, or, we're on the floor. I didn't I don't remember feeling put out by it in any way. Again, a lot, like, we joked for a long time, my brother and sister and I, that sleeping on the floor like changed us in a way because we all preferred hard beds, hard mattresses. And because we slept on the floor for a good while. Like, I'm thankful that my mom humbled herself and moved in with her parents because that provided stability that we didn't have. So that was really good. There was also tension, and my mom's family did not like my dad. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but they did not like my dad. And so my dad had us, once the divorce was settled and custody was all worked out. So for a long time, how it worked was my dad got us every other weekend, and then they switched holidays. Like, one year we would be with my mom for Thanksgiving and then my dad for Christmas, and then switch that. And I don't remember how they did it with the summertime. But so for a while my dad was allowed to come to the house and pick us up. And then after a while my grandpa wasn't having that. And so again, not going into a lot of detail, but my dad had to pick us up at a gas station by our house. And so that I remember as a kid feeling awkward and just weird, like getting picked up at the gas station. Our situation was such that we felt like we had to choose sides. We had to choose my dad's side or we had to choose my mom's side. And it's like, we loved my mom, we loved my dad, and we loved my grandparents, and we loved all of our family, right? But we had to choose. Like, the way it was handled was like we had to choose. And if we chose my dad, then it would be, we were talked bad about, we were looked down on. We were the first in our family that our parents got divorced. And so the whole situation just wasn't handled right. It wasn't handled good. And we were definitely made to feel like we were the odd ones out. To the kid, to the adult whose parents got divorced, God loved you. God hasn't rejected you. I know sometimes you think, well, why did God let this happen? Especially if you were brought up in church and you're like, what happened? Why did you let this happen, God? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know why God let this happen, but there's been a few times in my life that I have gone back and I said, I don't know. Had my parents stayed together, I don't know if I would have felt the need for Jesus. So I'm gonna go over topics that I wrote down that hopefully will help. So, rejection. When two people get married and they have children, and then for whatever reason, they get divorced or they separate. That separation, that divorce, you're not just rejecting the spouse. You're rejecting the kids. I mean, I felt as a child, like, why didn't you stay for us? Why didn't you stay and work it out for us? And rejection is a real thing. And to the kids, to the people who've had divorced parents, yeah, you feeling like you were rejected right along with your mom, right along with your dad. Yeah, that's real. And God can heal that rejection. Jesus died on the cross for you, and he did not reject you. He does not reject you. That rejection can be healed through Jesus. When people get married and they have children, those two people, mom and dad, are who the kids rely on to make them feel safe, to provide for them, to care for them. Mom and dad are the ones that the kids trust. And when divorce happens, the sense of who can I trust? If I can't trust my mom and dad, who can I trust? And if it was an ugly divorce, the uglier, the harder it is to trust, because your dad's lying, your mom's lying, people are lying to you. Like, you don't know what the truth is. I thought my dad loved me. I thought my mom loved me. I thought, marriage was a real thing. I thought God was real. And when parents get divorced, the kids can be spun out. And who the heck is God? I can't trust God. I can't trust marriage. I can't trust the Bible because it says to be married. It says divorce is bad. Like, you prayed, God, help my parents to get along. And, it's just very hard. And parents try to make it work. Your kids are counting on you. And if you're struggling with trusting people, I get it. But again, God can help you. God can restore that. God is trustworthy. So another area that I want to touch on is, a lot of times it's the and I don't know how it is today, but from what I've seen, is that generally the kids stay with their mom when parents get divorced. And so when you're living with your mom, and it could be with the parent, you could be staying with your dad, your mom could have left. So the parent that stays to parent the children, to raise the children, your kids see what you're going through. Your kids see the phone calls. They see after you've talked to that spouse, or your ex, they see your face, your emotions, your red face from crying, your bloodshot eyes from crying. They hear your tears. They see you at the checkout line when you don't have enough money, or you put something back that you couldn't afford for yourself. And so they see the sacrifices that you make so that they can have something. They see, if you go to church, they see the empty chair where dad was, where mom was, and now they're sitting next to you in that place. Or they see the effect that the empty seat at the table has. And so, your kids feel protective of you. They see the hurt that the other person is doing to you. And so they see that. And it's very confusing because, again, this is supposed to be my dad. This is supposed to be my mom, whichever one left. And, but now I see them hurting my other parent. You love both parents, but you see one hurting the other, or sometimes you see them both hurting each other. And that's a hard thing to rectify as a kid, and how to process that. Like, how do I process that my dad is hurting my mom? How do I process that my mom is hurting my dad? How do I process that my whoever is lying about whoever, right? Again, when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of other kids with divorced parents, so I really was different. There was a shame that came with having divorced parents. There was like an embarrassment. I didn't want people to come to my house like, well, where's your dad? Again, it's different today because there's a lot of people that are divorced. And so the kids, I don't want to say the kids have it easier, because having divorced parents is not easy. But so your kids are watching you, and having raised, we're almost going to have we have 4 adults, and we're soon to have another teenager. And so that'll be 7. We're almost going to have raised 7 teenagers. And there's a point in a child's life when boys and girls, they're under our wings, they're under our care, they are dependent on us. And then, especially with boys, they get to a certain age that they start protecting their moms. And that, married or divorced, like they start protecting their moms. And then, and that's like one of my favorite times in a boy's life is when that switch from boyhood to manhood happens. But when that child, that son has parents who are divorced, that protectiveness of his mother is amplified. And then now he has to fill in the role of dad at the house, right? He has to fill in the role of protecting the mom. And I've seen that play out, a few times. And then with the girls, a lot of times what I see is the girls end up blaming their moms. Mother-daughter relationships can already be strainful. Mother-daughter relationships can already be stressful and have some strain. But, with the emotions and all that kind of stuff, whereas a dad can kind of come in and temper, hey, you guys chill out, or whatever. The dad can come in and temper the mom and daughter emotions. Sometimes the daughters, and I know I took it out on my mom. And so, and it's worse when there's a divorce because, like I said, there's not a dad to help temper that. And so anyway, the kids watch what's going on, and they're taking on, feeling like, hey, this isn't right. Why is this person doing this? And then which parent do I believe? Right. That's a hard thing. And then, you see, I'm just going to say your dad, you see your dad, he's left, right? And you see your dad hurting your mom, or that she's hurt by a conversation, or she's hurt by having to carry the heavy load that she has to carry now. But you still love your dad, right? You still love him. He's still your dad, but he's hurting your mom. That's very confusing for a kid. You don't even know how to process that. And so you feel bad for loving your dad, but you feel bad that you feel bad about your dad. You feel bad that your mom's hurt, and you don't know how to help her. And, if you say anything nice about your dad, it's going to hurt your mom. If you say anything nice about your mom, it's going to hurt your dad. It's very, like I said, it's very confusing for a child to have to choose. And maybe the mom and dad aren't saying you have to choose me or you have to choose your dad. But the kid feels it. The kid feels the rejection. The kid feels like they have to choose between one or the other. And they'll pick sides eventually, and then when your parents are married and the kids always, not every kid, but kids do try to play parents, right? That's natural. And so, but when you're married, like you'd be like, no, you're not going to divide me and mom, Whereas, in a divorce situation, you could be like, hey, dad, mom is blah, 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 or mom said this, or mom won't let me, or dad, said this, or dad's letting me do this, or whatever. You can play that game. And then there's so much more obligation on the other parent to be like, oh, well, you can't do this, or that your mom's just saying that because of blah, blah, blah. Yeah, your mom is blank, 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 right? And so parents, be very careful of the words that you do speak about your ex, about the person that you're separated from, because your child is half that person, number one. And so when you talk bad about your ex, or you talk bad about, your spouse, you're talking bad about your child. Be careful who you talk to. Like, make sure you don't talk. You need to talk to somebody, but don't talk around your kids, right? Just don't, because it's already such a negative situation. It's already such an embarrassing situation. And yes, as a child, we know, everybody knows that we're getting divorced. Your parents are getting divorced. People know, but we don't want to talk about it, right? Just, we don't want to live in that constant, yeah, I'm divorced. So moms, dads, talk to somebody, but not around your kids. And then when you're around your kids, don't talk bad about each other. And if your child comes to you and complains or does the typical, hey, I have a problem with my parent, right? Which that's normal. Mom's being too mean, dad's being too mean, whatever. Work it out, like, for the child's sake. Don't take all your angry emotions, your bitterness out on that child. Don't seek revenge on that other parent with this child, because it's going to affect this child. The children need both parents, whether you like that other person or not. The child needs their mom. The child needs their dad. No matter what they did, they still need their mom and dad. Once that division is fed, because there is a division, right? Divorce is a division. Once that division is fed with that child and parent, and it continues, it cycles, it's very hard to reconcile the relationship down the road. So you may be mad, you may be hurt, but for the sake of your child, please temper your words and, try not to talk bad about the other person who your child. And if your child needs therapy, get them in therapy. If you have a pastor, have them talk to their pastor. A lot of times it was other women. There wasn't like a lot of women. It was just a handful, maybe like my friends. I had a really close friend and her mom. I watched her marriage, and that was an example to this day that I reference. And so get your kids a reference point. If your marriage is not the reference point that you want them to be, get them a reference point. Get them a strong marriage. Get them around that couple. If it's your son, have your son be around that dad. If your daughter, have your daughter be around that woman. Have them see the interactions of a healthy marriage. Have them see that marriage is good. Have them see how a wife and a husband interact with each other as much as possible. Because that will be reference points that they can reference when they get married. You don't want your divorce to be the reference points. Okay, so let's talk about divided time. So when you divorce, and again, I hope that it's not coming across like I'm hammering divorced parents. But I want you to be aware of how this is affecting your kids, because whether it's divorce, whether it's financial problems, whether it's adoption problems, health problems, whatever the problems that life throws at us, political problems, there's no eggs, there's no toilet paper, there's no, right? Those are small issues, but no matter what we face in life, no matter our problems, it affects our kids. And our kids, a lot of times feel left out. And so, for example, there was a family in our church, and one of the children was misbehaving and, causing a lot of problems for that family. And so I know, for example, that a lot of times the child that is acting up, that is causing the problems, that's where all the attention is, whether the attention is from the other parents, the therapist, you go up to talk to pastor, the phone calls, there's so much when a kid has escalated behaviors. The time that it takes away from the other siblings is great, and it affects the other siblings. So I remember watching this family and knowing that their siblings' behavior was very escalated, I said, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay?" Because they don't, these, um, they get left out, you know? And so, when you're going through a divorce, a lot of times you just think, oh my gosh, my emotions and this and this and this and this, right? Your kids. So if you can help your kids at all, that's what my goal is. So you can help your children. Hopefully, you can work out your marriage. Um, okay, so divided time. Let's go back to that. So divided time. So like I said, when we were growing up, um, every other weekend was with my dad, and then Thanksgiving one year, Christmas, and then switch, and then birthdays. How do you handle birthdays? Right? Some parents you can invite the other parent to the birthday party, not mine, right? So we would have a birthday with my mom, we'd have a birthday with my dad. We'd have Thanksgiving with my mom and then Christmas with my dad, or, whichever. Because a lot of times, they don't want to not have Thanksgiving with you or not have Christmas with you. So you'd end up usually having two Christmases, two Thanksgivings. And I remember one year, my cousins, I have one that's older, well, I have lots that are younger, but there's one that's older and one that's younger, they're siblings. And I remember we were hanging out one time at a family event, and they're like, "You're just so lucky. You get to have two birthdays, two Thanksgivings, two Christmases." And I was like, no, I would trade having two birthdays, two everything, to have what you have. You have your mom and dad at every event. Um, and then like, if you're involved in sports, you're involved in any kind of extracurricular activity, um, sometimes the parents don't get along. So your dad doesn't come or your mom doesn't come, or they come, but one's sitting on one side and the other on the other side. And it makes it very awkward. So parents, try not to make it awkward for your kids. Try to get along. If you are divorced, try to get along for your kids. Like for real, when my husband and I got married, when we were talking about planning our wedding, I honestly said, let's just elope because the way that my mom's side and my dad's side were, I was like, I don't think that they, in a wedding, you have the groom side, you have the bride side. I was like, we're going to have the groom side in the middle, and then my mom and my dad's side on the other side, the Hatfields and the McCoys kind of thing. But thank God they were okay. They were able to have a regular wedding and everybody was there. We didn't elope. But over the years, they have come together more and been able to be at like my siblings' things and have worked out those issues. But I'm the oldest, and so a lot of times that was that was a factor. And so, like some parents, some situations, the kids are a week here, a week here, a week here. And that's hard because you don't have a home. Like at least like with my mom, that was my home, because that's where we went to school. My dad usually lived in a different city. And so we would drive a few hours away. But when you're hashing out custody battles and all this custody time, where are your kids going to be able to call home? Where do you want them to have a home? There's a lot to think about. And then if they go to church and then you say, well, you can't go to that church, what are you doing to that kid? Right? Like I know some people who've been raised in one church, one city, one house, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden now you say, well, you can't go to that church. But when you divorce, you're breaking your kid's foundation, number one. And then one parent moves out. And so you're ripping your family apart. And you're throwing your kids in an upheaval. And then, they have clothes at one house, clothes at another house, friends at one house, friends at another house. rules in one house, different rules in another house. And then, you know, you go to church now here, you go to church here, like two different church. It's very confusing to have so many different things, right? The more stability you can give your children, the better that they will be. The more you can keep their lives normal, the better they will be. This is not related, but it is related. So, for example, I remember when 9/11 happened, our oldest was in kindergarten, and it was half day kindergarten at the time. She went in the afternoon. And so in the morning, it was all over the news. Everybody, the whole world already knew about 9/11. It had already happened. I brought her to school because she needed normal. Normal was going to school. So for that moment in time, I didn't want her, like, it was, she already could tell, okay, the radio's on. Even though she was in kindergarten, the radio, I was listening to the radio, the TV, whatever. You hear all this stuff that's happening with 9/11, and then you don't take me to school. Like, what is really wrong, right? So the more you can keep your child's life schedule normal and the same, the better off for that child. So it's always the children, who are asked to change their schedule. It's the children who are said, just do it. Just go with your dad. Just, get used to it, right? Change your schedule, change your life. And it's like, no, why don't you parents change your life? Change your schedule. You're the ones getting divorced. Change your schedules for the children. The ones who chose to blow up your kids' lives, right? Keep it as normal as possible for them. They will be better off. Standards, can we just talk about standard issues for a second? So this happens a lot. So when you're married, you already have differences of opinions on so many things when you come together as a newlywed, right? How to raise children is already something that you have to work out in a regular marriage. And then when you have divorce, so often, the standards that once were are not anymore. And so the child, again, is going to be confused, or the child can start manipulating, like, well, I don't want to go live with mom because she's too strict and I can't do A, B, and C. Or, the parent will try to buy the other child, right? Put that child in between the mom and the dad, like in between each other. And as much as you can agree on how to raise your child, come together as much as you can on that. So another issue that I wrote down was divorce makes your kids vulnerable. There's a lot of things that make your kids vulnerable. And when I say vulnerable, that means vulnerable for bullies, vulnerable to predators, vulnerable for the devil to just attack them, attack their minds, attack their emotions. And divorce is one of those. So again, like I said, having divorced parents, sadly, is more common than it was when I was growing up. But definitely when I was growing up, that was an issue that people would bully you over, that your parents are divorced. And it makes you more vulnerable as a female and a male when you don't have your protector, your dad, around. Let's be honest, like, broken kids are targets. And when your parents are divorced, you are a broken kid. And then another issue that happens when you divorce is friends. So, okay, so when you get a divorce, it does affect your children's friendships. So, your time, the child's time, now is, okay, well, now I can't come over because I'm at dad's house. And, I don't know that schedule. And sorry, I can't come to your birthday party because I'm going to be at my mom's house and, whatever. Or like, okay, well, now we're not even going to go to that church anymore. And so we're not even going to see each other. And we're not in that school, like whatever. There's so many changes that happen in that child's life. But a lot of times you don't even have the same friends anymore. And so again, you're tearing at your child's foundation. And when you get a divorce, it's not just you're divorcing that person you don't like anymore, or that person that's neglecting you, or that. And again, I'm not talking about dangerous situations. It trickles down. It destabilizes so many people that you're not even thinking about. You can make other people's marriage feel like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to happen to us? And, and then, okay, so you're divorced, your parents are divorced, and then they start dating. How do you handle that? You have a mom, you have a dad, and then now there's boyfriends and girlfriends involved. And again, you don't have a choice. Both of my parents dated. Both of my parents brought people into our lives that we did not gel with. Some of them didn't even like kids. It's like, okay, well, you're dating somebody with children. And thank God that those relationships didn't work out. Both my parents have remarried, and I have a good relationship with both of my step parents, and that's God. And so, as a child, you're thinking, okay, now, like, I remember, with my mom, I would be like, okay, so my dad has this girlfriend. Like, you don't want to go home and say, my dad has this girlfriend, and she's really pretty, or she's really nice, and she bakes really good cookies, and, like, you don't want to say that to your mom. So oh, how was your weekend, honey? Oh, it was good. Because they don't want to hurt your feelings. The kids don't want to hurt their parents' feelings. And the same when you go to your dad's house. Hey, so, how's life? You don't want to say, well, mom's got a new squeeze, or, you don't want to say anything like that. She's been seeing this guy for a while, dad. And he like works hard and he has big muscles, and, you don't want to say that to your other parents. So, it's a really awkward position to be in. And, I remember, I don't remember like how my mom reacted when my dad got married. And then I don't remember how my dad reacted when my mom got remarried. I don't remember. But I know that today, both my mom and my stepmom, this is kind of recent, but they kind of just like had a conversation and really realized that each other's really nice. Don't bring, I'm talking to the parents now. Don't bring your boyfriend's girlfriends around your kids. Like, when it's your weekend with your kids, that's your weekend with your kids. Your kids were before your girlfriend. Your kids come before your boyfriend. When it's really serious and you really think that, hey, this girlfriend thing could work out, we might get married, start introducing your kids, right? But don't have your every boyfriend and every girlfriend over with your kids. Number one, again, especially like if you're the parent that doesn't live with your child and you get like every other weekend like my dad, that's not the time to have a girlfriend. Like, I want time with my dad, right? I don't want to share it. I only get every other weekend with you, dad. I don't want to share it. And, or mom, whichever your case may be, because I know some kids live with their dads. But, when it's your time with parents, when it's your time with your kid, spend that time with your kid. Don't party with your friends. Don't have boyfriend, girlfriend over, that type of thing. Don't do your hobby. It's not about you. It's about your children. If you're a Christian kid, pray. If your parents won't listen, pray. God hears kids' prayers, 100%. If you are a step parent, maybe listening to this, you are not their parent. If you're the stepmom, you're not the kid's moms. If you're the stepdad, you're not their dad. They have a mom, they have a dad. Unless that parent is not in the picture. But even then, just say dad's in jail, mom's in jail, whatever. Even then, you have to tread lightly because you are not their mom or you are not their dad. Unless that child wants a parent, but still you have to, there's a whole lot of dynamics. Like, what is that child's relationship like with their mom, with their dad, vice versa. So, but you are not their mom, you are not their dad. If you are a child or even as an adult and you're struggling still with God and how God fits into all of this, ask him. So, like, where was God in all of this? You could be asking yourself that. My parents were Christian. What happened? I was raised in a Christian home. What happened? The Bible says, this. Where was God? He never left. To be honest, it's your parents that left God, or one of them. And God is still right there. God is still watching you. God is still protecting you. God is still with you, waiting right there for you, right at arm's length. Just reach out to him. He is there. Don't let anger grab a hold of your heart. Don't let unforgiveness and bitterness take root in your heart, because that is a hard one to get out. Don't let the devil divide, and let God heal those broken wounds, those open sores in your heart that was left when your parents left. Don't hold on to that. As a parent, if I can speak to the parents, if you're separated and you start the reconciliation process, make sure the reconciliation process includes your kids, because the division process, the rejection process, 100% included your kids. They're not numb. They're not blind. They are affected by those packed suitcases. They are affected by a lot, everything that went into this, right? Include them in the reconciliation process. Include their feelings. Have grace, parents. Have grace upon your kids. If you're a mom and you're bringing your husband back and he's ready to reconcile, he's getting things right. If you're a dad and your wife's ready to get things right, and your kids are like still unsteady, your kids are still trying to process this, have grace on them. But parents, if you're starting the reconciliation process, praise God. Like, I encourage you to continue that, but I also encourage you to include your kids, include them and talk to them, have these hard conversations, have, age appropriate conversations with them, and include them and ask them their feelings, and don't belittle their feelings. If you are in that separation phase, reconciliation phase, like I said, praise God. That is awesome. And I hope that it works out. I pray that it works out. But consider your kids. And dad, if you're the one that left, take your son, take your daughter. If you have more than one, take them individually out. Spend individual time with them. Make them feel important. Apologize for rejecting them when you left. Apologize for leaving them when you left. Don't just, and apologize for, hey, I acknowledge that you stepped up. I acknowledge that you felt these things, and I'm sorry. How can I make it better? And do it. If they say blah, 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 if it's reasonable, do it, and do what you can to make it better. If you already are divorced, it's not too late to make things right. If you have adult children, if you can, make it right. Start over. You're not going to get that time back. If you're a divorced parent, you're not going to get that time back. I just had my dad come. And so he lives out of state. And my parents have, like I said, been divorced since I was 6. And there's been a lot of, my dad and I don't have the closest relationship. But there were nuggets, there were little moments that my dad started to make things right. It's not too late. So parent, if you've divorced, I encourage you to try to make it right with your child. I'm over 50. It's not too late. My dad, we can still make it happen. If you are a child or, if you're a child going through this, my heart goes out to you. And hopefully God will bring you somebody into your life that will be there for you. And hopefully your parents can work things out or whatever. If you're a mom going through a separation or divorce, and it was one of those situations that you're like blindsided by, and that you're just, what in the world? And I'm talking to moms because mainly that's my audience. Again, my heart goes out to you. And I know that your world was rocked. And I know that, whether you worked, whether you stayed home, whether you homeschooled your kids went to public school, everything's changed. And I know, especially if you're a Christian woman, you are like, what in the world? And again, where are you, God? Know that God is there. God is in your brokenness. God is right beside you. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. If nothing else, don't give up on your relationship with God. Don't give up on God for your kids. Do what it takes to continue to serve God. And God will help you. Like, as a child, like I said, my mom, she didn't even know how to pump gas until they got divorced. She had to learn so much. She had to go from this to this. And she had 3 little kids. We never went hungry. Yeah, we wore thrift store clothes sometimes, but we never were naked. We always had what we needed for school. We always had what we needed. And I don't ever remember not having like lights, water. So obviously my mom was able to pay the bills. We had transportation, and I know that my mom probably sacrificed a lot. But my point of this is God provided. God provided people. God provided resources. God provided our needs. And as adult children, God is still providing for us. God has been our father. God has been my father. God has helped me to mother in a way that, to parent in a way that I didn't see. God has helped me to be a wife and have a marriage that I didn't see. And so, mom, going through a divorce or going through a separation, God has you in his hands. God has your kids in his hands. God is not going to leave you. God is not going to leave your kids. And I can't even imagine being a wife and a mom on this side of it, right? But I do know as a kid who's gone through this that God has your kids. You can rest that God has your kids in the palm of his hands. God will protect them and keep them. And I'm not saying that bad's gonna happen, because bad things can happen even if you're married, right? Bad things can happen if you do things right. God is there for your kids. God is going to help your kids process this. God is going to help your kids through this. God is going to help you through this. So, mom, lean on God, cling to his word, cling to the women in the church. The devil wants you isolated. The devil wants you to feel like you're alone. You're not. Cling to God, cry out to God, get yourself one or two women of God, be honest with them, open with them. If you need something, there's women who will help you. Like, if you need clothes for your kids, ask. If you need food, ask. And I 100%, I know that that's very, very, very humbling. But as a mom, I also know that we will do whatever it takes for our children, right? But I just want to encourage you, you're a mama in this situation. Don't leave God. If you are a Christian, do not leave God. God didn't leave you. God still has you. God still has your kids. If you are not a Christian and you're struggling through this, God is there for you too. God can take away the shame, the guilt. Same with the Christian women. I'm sure you're feeling guilty and shame and all that that goes into it. Draw close to God. If you're a child, an adult child who's had divorced parents, and you don't know Jesus, can I just tell you that, if it wasn't for Jesus, I honestly would probably be a mess of a woman. If it wasn't for all those times that my mom brought me to church and that God was faithful to reach in and take a hold of my heart, if I didn't surrender, I know I would be a mess of a woman because I'm already a mess enough. But God won't reject you. God won't leave you. He's not a father that's going to leave.